inclusive education. And I've read your documents and I agree with many of your asks. Many of them are just practical day-to-day asks, things like teachers having substitution to go to another special needs class, because how are we to get experienced teachers if they can't gain experience? There's a lot of that there, and I really think that those kind of things can be delivered. I mean, Moira, you spoke about the importance of early intervention, of course, which underpins everything. So that's the big picture, and I think you've dealt with both of those, the day-to-day and the big picture, very well in your documents. Just one other comment before I come to my two questions. And a number of deputies have commented on it. This narrative that schools are not cooperating perhaps as well as they should. And I really think we need to dig deeper, because it's not just about financial resources, it's about personnel, qualified personnel that can provide quality education, committed teachers. I mean, Marco Cossi asked a good question there. He talked about a career pathway for those teachers, and I really think that needs to be looked at, because we are in the middle of transformational change. You said, Maura, we're good at starting things, but it's to move it on to the next step. And transformational change requires support at so many different levels. So while schools have a responsibility to provide for students in their area, I think we shouldn't underestimate the challenge. Because I've spoken to a lot of teachers about the challenges that they face. And I mean, things like, we think of 6 students in a class. 4 of those students might be non-verbal. And again, there's a huge range of abilities. You can have very, very bright children in those classes. And the teacher has to be able to understand how each of those individual children learn. And I think we don't understand often how demanding that is, so that teachers can do a good job. I think that needs to be recognised. And I don't say that because I'm a former teacher, because the truth is I didn't do half of that, but I know many teachers who do. So that, just wanted to make those comments. I have 2 questions. I asked the Minister earlier about teacher training, not ongoing development, but actual training of teachers. And if it's reoriented sufficiently so that young teachers, when they come into schools, for all teachers to have a broad view of what inclusive quality education is, but also for teachers who want to specialise. Do you feel that there needs to be any change there? And my second question is around July provision. And I know the Chair has spoken about this, about ECHI staff. I want your views on qualified childcare practitioners being involved in July provision. We all receive many emails from parents who are, and I'm not putting it too strongly when I say it, distressed beyond words this summer about the fact that their child, lots of children may be getting it, but their child can't access it. So I would ask you, so that this can happen next year, that all children who need it can get it, what changes would you like to see happening, other than the pay change which you spoke about, and I fully agree with, but specifically around ECHI staff? Thank you.
I take the teacher training one first. I suppose we're very aware that a lot of the initial teacher education courses are up for reaccreditation at the moment, and the Teaching Council will be looking at them. I suppose no more than some schools do some things better than others. Some of the colleges prepare students very well for special needs education, and again that can be due to the interest of a particular person in the college. And all students will have a minimum. But again, like my previous point, if I have done something in college 10 years ago or 15 years ago or 20 years ago, and now I am faced with a principal coming to me and saying, listen, Maureen, will you take an autism class this year? My first question would be, will I be able for this? And what do I need to learn and what do I need to do? And I think it's the whole timely piece again, that if I say, gosh, I'd love to, but what training can I get? What can I do? I think we need to be very clear about what's there for teachers. I think we can do a certain amount in initial teacher education, but we can't do it all in initial teacher education. Continuous professional development does what it says in the tin. It's continuous. And it has to be there on a continuous basis for teachers, because we're all learning all of the time. So we can certainly look, and we can certainly standardise across the colleges with a minimum that everybody at least has to do a minimum. And there are more ways than looking at inclusive education across everything rather than just having a module on it. It can be in how we deal with parents, it can be how we teach language, it can be how we teach STEM, it can be how we engage in outdoor learning, it could be PE, it can be anything. Inclusive education can be built into everything, and I'm sure the colleges were all screaming as I'm saying this. But I think from that point of view, I suppose the nature of what we are, it's never enough. We always want more, and we always want better, and we always want it for our students. On the July provision, the qualified childcare practitioners, I really haven't thought about it enough to give you an informed answer on that. So it's something that I would certainly think about, and I'll come back to you and I will email you on it. Yeah.
Thank you. Marian?
No, I think you comprehended it, Maureen, but certainly in the early child, I suppose really we're all, Senator Flynn mentioned it earlier, the SNA in respect, I mean, the big start, the early start, the big start campaign of SIPTU and FIRSA and Congress more generally is really critical. I mean, we have graduates in the early childhood, early ECCE sector who are graduates, some on the master's degree level, and they're being paid minimum wages. And we're now at the stage where we have the Joint Labour Committee and that there will be improved wages brought in. But, I mean, improved wages, when you're a professional with this passion and commitment to your client, which is what teachers and whether they're teaching very young children or adults, is pay isn't everything. It's the working conditions as well. It's the career pathway. It's the validation. It's that having time to grow as a professional is really critical. One of the reasons teachers get very cranky is because they're just too busy to have time to think about what they want to think about. And I think it's particularly so in the early childhood sector, where they're simply not valued. If we value pay as a kind of what's the word, as a mark of how much we value you, they're not valued. So it's critical. And of course, they're working in privately run institutions, frequently chains, which have profit as their primary orientation. And their working conditions in terms of continuity of work and job security can be very, very precarious and varies quite significantly across the country. So, yeah, I mean, they have a good big union behind them, SIPTU, but certainly in terms of their engagement with this, because they are so qualified, I can see no territorial reasons why they wouldn't. But I can see, shall we say, working condition reasons which are barriers to people staying in the sector. And that, I think, we talk about retention in the teaching profession. To me, there's a far greater threat of a flood, an exodus from the ECCE profession than there is for mainstream teachers at the moment.
And just one thing very briefly, just to echo what Maureen was saying about the continuous professional development. It can't just simply be a module in training, because over the course of your career, so many things change, so your information won't be current. And there's the idea as well that you need to keep updated with things and constantly in touch. So it needs to be a mixture of both. Thank you.
Thanks, I appreciate that. And just one sentence. But my question, I suppose, was about, and you answered it, it needs to be standardised probably across the colleges. Thanks.